Hey, often on the channel here, we look at some of Scooby-Doo's scariest villains, which inevitably more often than not are from the third incarnation, the Scooby-Doo show. Last time we looked at one of the villains so unforgettable that he came back for more in 2001's Cyber Chase film. And since I'm gearing up to talk about the film this year on Patreon, I thought we'd finally look at another iconic monster that originates from this series and came back for that film. One that I've been hoping to get back to for a long time. Yes, we're staying in the same season for Season 3, Episode 5, originally aired October 7th, 1978, The Tar Monster. This is one of those iconic episodes you often might run into on Boomerang or something in the 2000s, since that was how many discovered much of the show. And this would be such an iconic monster that it wouldn't only come back for Cyber Chase in 2001. In 2004's live-action Monsters Unleashed film, the Tar Monster is a very memorable villain brought to life, and serves a genuinely terrifying role in the climax, making this a definitively unforgettable monster. That moment always scared me growing up and was very serious to me. However, the individual season set of this show wouldn't hit DVD for a few more years, in 2007, and I personally didn't have any TV channels that would air the show at my own home, only my grandparents, so I hadn't been able to experience this source episode prior to Monsters Unleashed, making the two films my real first exposure to this icon. Because of that, I've actually seen this less than the film depictions of the monster, and it should be interesting to really sink into this one. Surprisingly, despite how memorable and recognizable this one is, it's only made it onto really one big VHS compilation release, which didn't help not growing up with it, of course. It's one I expected to see at least one or two more recent ones for, just to turn up a big ol' zero. Maybe it's because of some interesting things in it. Either way, let's step carefully into this while we still can. The episode opens with the gang driving along this road, and the visuals here are just beautiful. The background art always manages to stand out as the biggest factor in an episode's atmosphere, especially these sweeping panning shots that are so full of an eerie world to explore. From Shaggy, we find out they're in Turkey, and Scooby is getting the brunt of the rough road in the back. They're on their way to the camp of their friend Professor, or Dr. Brixton, he's referred to as both, so maybe he's multifaceted. Apparently he's discovered an entire city buried for thousands of years, inviting the gang to be among the first to see it. Shaggy gets in the back with a fez on, which I guess isn't necessarily wrong, but he and Scoob playing music to pretend they're charming a snake by way of Scooby's tail is a little culturally misplaced already. But as they drive on, past this muddy-looking area, our titular monster rises from the depths and begins to follow. When they pull up, the entire area is surrounded by a barbed wire fence and littered with guards, a man stopping them at the gate until hearing they were invited by Dr. Brixton, and are directed to his tent. As they drive in though, the man does give them a suspicious glance. In his tent they catch up with Professor Dr. Brixton, who says there might not be much to see now that they've had to stop digging. As it turns out, all the workers have been frightened off by the titular tar monster, giving Scuba fright here. According to the Dr. Professor, the area has been known for tar pools, though in reality the nearest tar pool would be in Ukraine, but Scooby doesn't exactly need real-world statistics, does it? As for the tar pool serving this episode, people apparently have always believed this ancient city of Byzantius to be protected by a legendary creature living in said pools. The name Byzantius also is a reference to Byzantium, an ancient Greek city located in present-day Turkey that you can still see right here. Brixton says the trouble began yesterday, when they finally reached the inner sanctum of the city. Just as they were about to open it, they found an ancient curse carved in stone, saying the city is under protection of the tar creature. They then heard a roar cry out, and the tar monster itself appeared before them, so terrifying that all his workers ran away.
And that's not the worst of it.
Like I was afraid you were gonna say that.
He takes them to show them what he means, explaining he heard his assistant Mr. Stoner shouting last night, and came over to find his tent destroyed and the man himself missing. All that's left is a portrait of Stoner covered in tar, and tar footprints all over the area. They head back to the tent for safety, and as he says he must carry on by himself if he must to find the precious treasure that awaits, a shadow creeps behind him. The boys, who are weirdly out of focus, see it and run, and I love these smear frames of them in motion. However, it's not the tar monster who enters, but rather this man that they bounce off of.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
Brixton introduces the man as his foreman, Benghazi. Yes, it's a pun on the city named Benghazi. Like the snake charming before, this does not really have anything to do with where the gang currently are. Benghazi is far over 1,000 miles away from here in a different country. Ben takes everyone to their tents, and over at Shaggy and Scooby's, Shag is so noisy that the already sleeping Scoob awakens just enough to put on some headphones and a sleep mask to avoid further interruption. And he's so valid. Scoop gets his revenge though, snoring so loud that Shaggy now cannot get any sleep. Then hearing a growl, but when Shaggy turns on his flashlight, it's something else at his bed instead of Scooby.
Oh boy, like it's only the tar monster.
He scrambles out of bed as he calls to his friend, loud enough that it makes Scoop take off the headphones, only hearing the growling. So when he finally lifts his mask, he sees the same fright awaiting him as well. He bounces off and the two hop over to the tents of the others to tell them what they saw, describing the height and the fear. So they decide to go look. Sure enough, the tent is covered in tar for once backing up all of their claims. With more tar footprints all around, they choose to follow, ending at a tar pool, suggesting the monster went into it. Fred also finds what seems to be part of an ancient piece of pottery, just as the monster reaches out to try and grab Scooby. Thankfully, it's without success, as they head to show the professor their findings, and it watches them from the pool. Inside the tent the next morning, they all meet with the man from the gate, Mr. Kareem, who actually works for the government and says they agree with finding the treasure and he will be assisting them today. Fun fact, he's voiced by Henry Corden, the second voice of Fred Flintstone, while Brixton is regular actor on the show John Stevenson, who voiced Fred's boss, Mr. Slate. And after last night, the gang are readier than ever to follow this mystery themselves. Later, they start heading down, and they do indeed find a whole city before even going deep. The boys accidentally break a priceless statue, but at least turn it into something new, I guess. As they continue, the girls ask about the ancient city and why it's buried, and Brixton says they believe there was a large earthquake that dropped the entire region, while the surrounding hills collapsed and buried it. They finally reach the area with the curse where the workers saw the monster and ran away, and Brixton uses a crowbar to get the door open, but inside is nothing. The treasure inside seems to already have been stolen, and Scooby points out something worse waiting: the monster. The tar monster stares menacingly at them as Shaggy shouts to run, but Velma calms the boys down, pointing out this is really only a statue. Brixton says it's been here for centuries to guard the treasure, while Fred points out there are tar tracks in here. Mr. Kareem says no one could get past his guards, which means the monster found another way in. Brixton and Kareem leave to report it, but Fred holds the boys back so they can find the monster. Following the footprints, they suggest the monster has been here often, with the tracks going down both corridors. Obviously, against the wishes of the boys, that means splitting up.
What could possibly happen to you?
The boys on their side crash and tumble with some pottery, Shaggy realizing it seems like the same style that they found by that pool earlier. The trio meanwhile find themselves in a maze, having to stick closely to the tracks to not get lost, and soon enough they find another tar pool that they lead to. With the tracks ending at the pool every time, Velma is starting to put this together, so they head to reunite with the boys. And on their end, the boys hear the recognizable growl of the monster, turning back to see it following behind them. They run to the next room and start applying makeup for their big scene, the monster walking right past these statues where even I can't seem to find where they're hiding. Unfortunately, Scoop sneezes all the makeup off of the both of them and gives it away, so they run off. Back with the trio, they find a workman's tool chest all the way back here for some reason, and the funniest kind of audio to visual mismatch happens where somehow Velma simultaneously shares a voice with Daphne and then herself.
What's it doing way back here? Look at this!
Inside is a map of the underground city covered in the tar, including the inner sanctum in the middle, making this the final clue they needed to wrap this up. The boys meanwhile continue to run, and set up a photo studio, taking some real beauties with the monster as they give it the special discount. Love them fitting its eye where the head goes on these. They run off, but Scoop falls in some tar, so obviously Shaggy thinks he's faced the monster when he sees him. Thankfully, the next room he runs into is where the others are, where he proceeds to mourn his friend being swallowed up by the monster.
Oh, he was like a brother to me. I'll miss him something awful. Scooby.
Yeah.
Velma then finds another clue, an air compressor, definitely not something you would find in an underground city abandoned for thousands of years. Now Velma's sure of everything, so they take the compressor to capture the monster. With Fred's trap ready, it's set to not start pumping air until they return to the surface, so they rush out. The candle burns the rope in two, it drops this onto the compressor to turn it on, and it falls into the tar as planned. Up top, the tar starts to bubble as they hope to force the monster out. Sure enough, a giant bubble floats up, the monster inside. Though, one of the many unrealistic things going on here, it pops and traps it on a tree, and with the authorities gathered, Fred unmasks the monster to reveal Stoner, the missing assistant. He posed as the monster to frighten away workers so he could sneak in and take the treasures before Brixton could find them. As for how he got in, it begins with the pottery they found at the tar pool, which had to come from the lost city, so when they found the second connecting pool pool down there. They realized these were how he was going back and forth. He would use his scuba gear to dive into the tar and swim around in it. This is yet another impossibility of the episode, or at least almost so, as there have been dives in extreme circumstances into tar, but it's just not possible to swim in a pool of it, even with a tar monster suit. And not only would visibility be nearly non-existent, the methane gas that created that bubble earlier would pose severe health risks that the treasure couldn't justify, not to mention the risk of getting stuck, or the difficulty of cleaning gear and using it again. But like we established, we're on cartoon logic here, so it's fine.
All that's left now is to find the treasure.
Treasure? Stoner refuses to tell Brixton where he hid it, but Velma believes the map they found will have all the answers. They return to the inner sanctum, where, according to the map, there's a secret room behind the wall. As they feel around, Scooby gets his nose stuck and is thrown over onto the monster statue, causing it to rock back and forth. When he jumps down, it falls back and the wall opens up, revealing all of the lost treasure inside thanks to Scooby-Doo himself. Brixton and Kareem are deeply grateful for the gang bringing this back to them after these many years, but Shaggy hands it off to Scooby, sitting like a king.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
And that's the Tar Monster, the episode and the villain. Not a bad classic episode at all, and definitely a memorable villain. It's a bit funny that the episode is highly improbable realistically when it comes to the villain swimming in the tar, because it's really the reality of tar itself that's become why this villain is so frightening. The final scene of Monsters Unleashed when it takes hold of the gang was genuinely intense and scary in the film growing up. The way it overtook them, threatened to suffocate them, made it feel time was really running out. The original episode itself doesn't especially hone in on those aspects, likely because it would simply be too frightening more than anything. So keeping this guy coming back and taking advantage of that made a lot of sense. And it helps add to that factor when it comes to the original episode in retrospect, even if it's not fully realized here. You can almost get it when Scooby falls in the tar and Shaggy mistakes him for getting got, but that scene really is just played for laughs. Even so, the moan it makes and the mere appearance of the monster remain highly memorable. The episode does have some nice smaller moments here and there. I skipped over it because it's not really important, but there's a lot in the morning meeting where Shaggy's off to the side cooking breakfast with Scooby, and it's a nice cool down moment that sells that they really are continuing to live part of their regular day and are more than cartoon characters moving from point A to point B. There's also a bit that happens later when being chased by the monster where they keep disturbing this spider and its web, and it's a cute little scene but not notable enough to talk about earlier, so it could still be easily cut for time. This one is a pretty solid mystery, though the villain is pretty obvious even with Kareem as a red herring or so on, as of course it's going to be the one person involved directly who happened to be taken conveniently and can no longer be accounted for, and I think it's really funny that he left a picture of himself behind. But the episode does lay out the clues in a logical way that helps us put things together alongside the gang, and the monster is further helped out by being actual local folklore that is established prior to the events, down to the pre-existing statue inside the inner sanctum. This might be a little more on the irregular side, but I do love a monster that's meant to be some kind of established myth come to life in some way. The representation of Turkey is a bit questionable, but honestly for original Scooby era, it really could be worse. I can see that being why the episode has been held back from joining a ton of compilation DVD sets potentially, but I don't think there's anything here compared to other episodes I've talked about recently that might be a lot worse. There's not anything necessarily harmful at play here. Definitely one of the classics, one of the greats. I surely would have put this on that 50 episode best of anniversary set in place of a good few of those if I was in charge. Hopefully you enjoyed looking at this one, and Old Ironface in the last one if you saw that one already. Ahead of diving into the next big appearance of this monster over in Cyber Chase. I don't know when that's happening. Probably still not going to be soon. It's a very daunting video to put into action, but I'll let you know when it's here someday before the year is over. That will be on Patreon whenever it does happen though. Hopefully you like the next regular video on the channel, whatever that may happen to be, so like and subscribe and all that stuff so you don't miss it. If you want to support the channel on Patreon, which is the main reason it exists, it is now live. As a bonus, you get the exclusive Zombie Island and Witches Ghost videos that Cyberchase will eventually be joining, plus covering the second episode of Clue Club to see where it went after the premiere with more episodes to come, and more. Also, not sponsored because obviously that would never happen, but shout out to Warner Archive yet again for the complete series Blu-ray release of Laugh Olympics, finally completing the show on home video for the first time, and even including the 2012 Spooky Games short. I do really appreciate getting to replace my old DVDs with a superior release. I guess I need to go work on whatever that is that's happening next, and probably figure it out first. I'll see you then. Bye!